teachers to reflect upon their practice. And teachers are always more than welcome to come back and say, actually, I need some support with this, or what I'm doing isn't working, can I have some CPD, or actually, have you got any other ideas? Because what we're doing as a whole school isn't no longer having an impact. So yeah, the door is always open. And, as an SLT, we really, really value those conversations that we do have with teachers, because we're not in the classroom every day. I do cover lessons and I do cover days, and next year I'll be teaching a day in year 4. So we do keep our hand in what goes on in the classroom, but actually we haven't got as much of a view of the teachers who are doing it day in, day out, all day.
Hello, my name's Jenna. I'm an online primary tutor, and today I'm talking to Ruth, who is the head of school, about classroom management strategies. If you are a teacher, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for coming to join me today. I really appreciate it, Ruth.
No, not a problem. Happy to collaborate, happy to give up my time if it's going to benefit other people.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. There seems to be a lot of need for support with classroom management strategies. But before we get on to that, can you tell me what is your role as head of school?
Okay, so currently I'm head of school at a primary academy within the West Midlands, and that involves generally the day-to-day running of the school, looking at the year, looking at the strategic planning for the year, and making sure that the year runs smoothly and the day-to-day logistics of the school run smoothly too. Obviously, I'm heavily involved in the budget setting. I'm heavily involved in, the SEF and the academy improvement plan, and looking at the 5-year strategy for growth and development of our staff. So it's a really busy job because, I have to look at all the policies, I have to make sure behaviour is in check, I have to look at insets and CPD for staff. I also have to look at, the budget and make sure the decisions that we make are going to benefit the school now, but in the future as well. And aside of that, we have to make sure that everybody in that building is happy, even, when there's decisions that are made that probably don't go down well to begin with, but people's well-being is a priority for us, because if the teachers aren't happy within the school, then they're not going to perform effectively, they're not going to be on top of their game. So it's being head of school is really looking at the logistic planning of the school, making sure we can move forward successfully, and making sure that the teachers are happy and can perform brilliantly, and that we get the best out of the children.
And how long have you done that role for?
So I've been in this current role for 2 years now. In September, it'll be my 3rd September at the school. Before that, I was assistant principal at another school within our academy chain. And before that, I was EYFS lead.
Oh, wow. My background's in early years, so that I really like talking to people who are linked to early years in some way. That's lovely. So then, what does classroom management strategies mean to you?
So classroom management strategies, are techniques and methods used to create a positive environment within the classroom, an organised learning environment, and respectful environment in which children can thrive properly. And when we're talking about classroom management strategies, we're talking about rules and expectations, we're talking about ethos, we're talking about all the things that go together to make the learning environment a successful one and a positive experience for the children that are in it as well. It's all about building those positive relationships and getting the children to value their own worth and realizing actually what they are capable of and what potential they have. And when we're talking about strategies to manage that, it's all about knowing the children inside and out, and seeing how they work, seeing how they run, and what makes them tick, what doesn't make them tick, what turns them on to learning, what turns them off to their learning. It's about all those things encompassing, coming together to provide a really positive experience for them when they're inside that classroom.
So if we go back in time to when you first started in education, what was classroom management like for you?
Well, when I first started, I've been teaching now 23 years. So when I first walked into the classroom as an NQT all those years ago, my classroom management was pretty abysmal. I just wanted to get on. I wanted to be their friend. I wanted to have fun, and I wanted it to be nice and relaxed. But I didn't realise all the work that has to underpin that first. The importance of building those relationships, the importance of being consistent, the importance of gaining respect, of having those boundaries, having those expectations, and having those clear routines in place with the children. So to begin with, mine was actually quite poor. so I've had to do a lot. I had to do a lot of work within my first few years of teaching to make sure that, you know, I was on point all the time and I could preempt a situation and I knew what to do. Putting in the groundwork really benefited me because, you know, I can just walk in the classroom now and know how to run with the situation and get good results and build up the rapport with the children straight away. So, but to begin with, it wasn't always like that. And I think that shows the importance of trial and error, of making mistakes and learning from them, because the only way we learn after we've qualified is by experiencing things. And when you do training, it doesn't always tell you everything that you need to know. It tells you very little in terms of being a real life teacher. It tells you how to do a 20-page lesson plan, but it doesn't actually, you know, really prepare you for the nitty gritty that comes with teaching. So my classroom management strategies have developed so much since my starting point. And when I look back now, I was probably horrendous in the classroom to begin with. And that's down to the lack of importance, but, you know, the lack of training I had, or the lack of experiences I had maybe in my training, it didn't stand me in good stead.
Moving forward to your current role, what sort of strategies, so if a new teacher comes to your school, what sort of strategies do you share, or what sort of training do you share with your staff, especially if they're very, very new?
So when we have new staff come on, because we've recently took on a new ECT. So she comes to spend the day, she comes and has a look around the academy, and she'll spend some time with the children, and we'll sit down and we'll go through all our policies and our strategies and the way that we do things at school, so she knows what is expected. But then we look at it in practice as well. So we'll spend some time in the classroom and we'll point certain things out. Oh, this is why the teacher's done that, this is why the teacher's done that. And then, you know, when they begin with us, we do team teaching and we do coaching with them, so that, you know, we can reflect on their practice together and we can identify strengths, and then we look at the areas for development, and then we plan in CPD for that. We're moving with the behaviour strategies and the classroom management strategies that we have at present, and we're having some training in September. So we've made sure that the ECT's got a pack before she starts, so that when she comes into the training, she's already had like pre-teach kind of thing. She already knows what she's going into, so that actually that day will just be, you know, a really in-depth run through of everything that she's managed to pick up already.
As that new teacher progresses, and there may be times, you know, in the future where she needs to come back to you, can staff come back, you know, at any point
Yeah.
to you?
At any time, you know, we need to be like that. If we want schools to be good schools and we want children to make good progress and children to be happy in school, you know, we need teachers to reflect upon their practice. And teachers are always more than welcome to come back and say, actually, I need some support with this, or what I'm doing isn't working, can I have some CPD, or actually, have you got any other ideas? Because what we're doing as a whole school isn't no longer having an impact. So yeah, the door is always open. And, you know, as an SLT, we really, really value those conversations that we do have with teachers, because we're not in the classroom every day. You know, I do cover lessons and I do cover days, and next year I'll be teaching a day in year 4. So we do keep our hand in what goes on in the classroom, but actually we haven't got as much of a view of the teachers who are doing it day in, day out, all day. So we really welcome it when our staff come to us and say, this isn't working well, or we could do this more effectively, because actually they're at the forefront. So we take on board what they say, and then we sit down as a team and we thrash it out and we look at solutions. And a lot of our staff will come to us because we work like that. A lot of our staff will come to us now with those solutions. So they're really solution focused, and it makes such a change to the working dynamics of the school. It's great.
It sounds quite collaborative, to be honest, which is lovely. It's not just a top-down approach.
No, and you know, when I went, because obviously I'm head of school and then there's an executive principal that sits on top of me, and we've really tried to change the culture, so it's a team effort, and no matter what your role is within that school, you're valued, and everybody's valued in the same capacity, in the same way. And you know, we all feed into stuff. For example, tomorrow we've got a team of teachers that are looking at curriculum development. They've been to another school and they've brought back, you know, the CPD that they had, and they've brought back the good practice that they saw. And we're looking at ways in which we can develop our foundation curriculum. So they're leading on that tomorrow. And, you know, some of our TAs have said, oh, well, we'll have some classes so that we can free up the teachers and they can go and do that. Because we all know we're a partnership, we're a team, we've got to work together to get the best for everybody. So, you know, the teachers have really come on board with what we've tried to do, and we couldn't be any more grateful for that. It's such a collaborative place now. It's great, and all schools could be like that.
I've done permanent and supply in my past career, and you did see a massive difference between when staff and leadership weren't on the same page. In
Yeah.
both cases, the behaviour was horrific in some schools, and staff were they were desperate for help, but unfortunately SLT were in their office. But then at the same time, an academy had come in and there was a whole host of things going on, so the whole school was like trying to find their feet. But when you go in and everyone's on the same page, the whole school just feels totally different, where as soon as you step in, you can just feel like, oh, this feels lovely. But that takes a lot of work to get to that point.
Yeah, so like it wasn't like that straight away. Like I hope nobody's listening to this and thinking, oh, it's been a bed of roses. It hasn't. It's been a learning journey for everybody inside the school to buy into this, this culture that we're trying to create. And like I said, in September, it'll be my 3rd September at the school. And it's took until then, it's took until now to get it right. We still have pockets of really poor behaviour, children who aren't the mainstream, but there's no place in a specialist provision, or there's no funding. And you just made the point about SLT being in their office. There's been times when we've been in our office, and I think there may have been a perception by teachers that we're not coming out to support them with that behaviour. But like, we've been on the phone to the authority saying we need more support, because we've got teachers being attacked, teachers being verbally abused. You need to come and help us. It's not acceptable. And so there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that sometimes teachers aren't privy to. And that's just because of the natures of the job, because then you don't come out and say, oh, I've just had this conversation, and you have to keep some stuff private. But the amount of red tape that there is out there, or you have to jump through so many hoops sometimes. Luckily, there's 2 people at our local authority that can really see what we've done at our school, and they've backed us, and they're trying to find places for these children now. But it's took so long to find these 2 people to help us, that there's just so many just different hoops that you have to jump through. But like you said, when you walk into a school and you know that everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet, you've got that ethos of collaboration, and it's like a family, and you have to develop that culture, but it just takes time.
And there can be sometimes year groups where whatever teacher they have, the teacher will struggle with them. There's a particular year group, maybe there's things going on in the children's personal lives that, it's really hard. I worked with a particular class, and, some children have lost their parents, and there was a whole host of things going on. So whatever year group they were with, whatever teacher they were with, there was always issues and concerns. So what kind of support do you put in place when there is a particular tricky class, and whatever that teacher does, something else is needed? Have you ever had to deal with that type of situation?
Yeah, and then this is where we've approached the authority, because so we put a CPD in, we put a range of CPD, and not just for that teacher, but for other people as well, so that actually that teacher could be relieved, and it wasn't just in there all day. So we had to think of the teacher's well-being from that point of view as well. But we've put a whole host of stuff in. So we went to other provisions to look at what they were doing. We had the authority come in who offer different programs of support in terms of nurture and the holistic approach. And we tried them. We tried to change our practice in our current school. We changed our classroom layout. We changed the curriculum. We created a bespoke curriculum for some of these children, but they're just not right for mainstream. And that's what it came down to. We did loads of work on self-regulation. We did loads of work on the Thrive program. We did loads of work with the BRICS program, building resilience and things like that. But it didn't have the impact that it wanted us to have. It did for probably, children who didn't need it as such responded really well to it and took it on board, and they enjoyed it. But the children who we were aiming it at, it wasn't successful, or there wasn't enough success for them. And they're the ones that we've had to approach the authority to say that there's nothing else we can do in terms of providing an education. We can manage them, but we can't provide a good quality of education for them. And they've agreed now that we're not the right setting for them. But we have invested heavily in terms of looking at different practices, different provisions, and thinking outside the box of different approaches we could try for these children. But just hasn't had the desired impact with a very small cohort.
That's a shame, because in education you have to show the evidence, don't you? You can't just go and ask for help, because they don't, not that they don't believe you, but I suppose there's so many schools needing help. You have to prove why your school needs the help more over somebody else, which is a terrible position to be in. Every school should have that support, but you're kind of fighting.
And it's because
Really.
and it's because the other provisions that are out there aren't that many of them, are there, in comparison to the amount of in schools. So everybody is fighting for those places, and the evidence that you have to collate is just it's months and months and months, and then you have to keep saying to the teacher, but don't worry, because we're going to get there, we're going to get there. And then when you've been saying it since October and it's getting towards June, you feel really bad, but they understand, because we try and keep them in the loop as much as we can with what's going on, and like we invite them to as many meetings as they can come to, so that they are aware of what we're trying to do, and being like that and letting them know what's going on has really built our relationship with them, because they trust us now. So when we're saying, oh, we're sorting it out, they believe that we are going to sort it out, and now they've seen actually that we've got somewhere with the authority agreeing with us. They know that we will sort it out as well. So that's really helped build the relationships between staff.
That's really good, because you're following up on their concerns, and I think that's where the breakdown happens in a lot of schools. They keep asking and asking for help, and in some cases it's just not happening. But then if they're visibly seeing that you are constantly working on it, then it can make it better for a teacher in a classroom. Then it's like, right, I'm dealing with it, but I know I've got the support behind me. I know I've got that backbone, that trust.
And it makes such a difference, because I've worked in a school before I was assistant principal. I worked in a school where it was just the teacher that had to deal with it. And you used to get comments such as, well, it's not our job, it's the teacher's job. Well, no, we're all in this together, We're all buying in to making the children's education as good as possible, the children's life as good as possible. So if we need support in doing that, you have to come and help us. And I totally get that the first port of call could be the class teacher, because they're the one who's got the better relationship. They know the child, they spend more time with the child, and actually it's their classroom management that is having an impact on this. But you do need support from SRT, you need support from the wider school community. It's all of you that buy in, and for someone to turn around and say it's not our job, or actually it's not our problem, you're the class teacher, deal with it, it's just horrendous.
The best ones for me personally have been when every member of staff and every child knows who the head of school is, or knows who the head teacher is, and it's not a big deal when they come in the classroom, because they know that that person is present. And if they're not necessarily playing up, but they know there'll be consequences if something happens. And I think children need to have those boundaries in place, because if they know that, because there were many teachers I worked with in some of the supply schools, and the children knew that whatever they did, nothing would happen, because no matter how many times the teacher would go and ask for help, just nothing would happen. But then in other schools, it was so refreshing, and the head would be down straight away, or the deputy would be down straight away, or someone, and it was dealt with and sorted. And it's just that backbone. But anyway, moving forward, what are some of the best practices that you have seen for setting and upholding classroom rules? So when you've maybe been observing and something that's made you go, oh my goodness, I've never thought of that before, or this is like an amazing classroom and I love the way they've done this, or something like that.
The best classrooms I've been in is where the teachers put the time in to get to know the children properly. Like, they've got really good relationships with them, and they understand the children, they understand their emotions, they know their backgrounds, they know what their triggers are, and they know like what their comforters are. And it's all about the ethos when you walk into the classroom. So when I go into a classroom and it's calm and the children are on task, and by calm I don't mean silent. I don't like silent classrooms. I like it when there's a little bit of a pause, you know, when the children are talking about the learning and you can tell that they're enjoying what they're doing. I think those are the best classrooms, and those classrooms that are like that, they've got the best classroom management strategies, because it all comes down to the relationship and the feeling inside that classroom. If a child feels safe inside your classroom, if they feel valued, you know, if you've built that relationship where you respect them and they respect you, you don't have a lot of incidents within your classroom.
So then the classroom layout, what role do you think that has in classroom management as well, or does it have any?
I think, you know, again, the best classrooms that are going in terms of classroom management, you know, the layout plays a huge role, because actually children need to know where the resources are. They need to be they need to be readily accessible. You know, the children need access to things. It's not for the teacher to keep going and providing them. The children should know where they are. It needs to be orderly and tidy, and it needs to be inviting. You know, I'm not a big fan of like really bright colours in the classrooms. I do like quite neutral tones, and you know, and the calming colours as well, because I really think that they do have an impact on the children's behaviour and the children's feelings and the children's mood.
Definitely, because there was a point, like some schools I've worked in, again, lovely and calm, but then other ones they had like there was a phase where lots of schools, especially in early years, I don't know if you ever saw it, but everything was hanging. And you
We
go
have
in
that
and you're
now,
like
early years
trying to knock
now.
everything out the way, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's all this stuff?
At our early years, you walk in and you forever you up and down. But the expectations there, the relationships there, and the routine and the consistencies there, and they play such a huge role in it. You know, if the children come into the same routine every day, the same consistency, the same expectation, and the same boundaries, there's no room for maneuver, there's no wriggle room, and they're very clear on what you expect day in, day out. And that's when behaviour's good, because you're not changing the goalposts for them.
Yes, because some schools I've walked into, they've said, oh, previously, you know, the children that were not behaving the best would get rewards and get treats, but then the children that were trying their best got nothing, but they would notice the differences. But if it is that clear and consistent, then both children know what to expect and know what's you know, coming next. Have there been staff that you've supported who have probably consistently struggled with classroom management strategies, and how have you gone about supporting these type of staff? What can you do when you've gone past the stage of being a new teacher, but a few years in and you're still struggling? What do you do in a leadership role then?
So we'd go in and we'd look at the classroom practice, and like an observation, not a formal one, just we'd go in and we'd have a look at what was going on in the classroom, and then we'd provide some feedback, but we'd offer the teacher some opportunity to reflect first, because you know, as a teacher, what you think works well, what doesn't work well. So we would go through that first, ask them to reflect on their own practice, and then we would give our opinion as well. And then we would just come up with a plan to move them forward. Then that might look at some coaching, some mentoring, some visits to other teachers. It might look like a bespoke CPD course for them if they wanted to refresh their knowledge. So it would depend on what aspect of classroom management it was, and what their need was. But there would certainly be a lot of dialogue between myself and the teacher, some team teaching, some coaching, some mentoring, and then an opportunity to visit other colleagues, maybe not just in our school, but in other providers as well, so they could have a look at a range of strategies, and then maybe more bespoke CPD if that was needed.
That's a really good program actually, to help staff so that they don't feel that there's nowhere to turn. So that sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
So now, for your new teacher, if you were giving them advice, stepping into the classroom, or maybe a teacher that's training, what advice would you give to that new teacher at the very, very beginning of their career about classroom management?
Be clear of your expectations, be clear of your vision for what you want your classroom to look like, what you want your ethos to be in your classroom, and work hard to make that happen. You know, don't be afraid to change things, don't be afraid to mix things up until you've found exactly how you want to be. Spend a few weeks right at the beginning of the term getting clear on goals, routines, consistency, boundaries. Make sure that you're consistent in your approach. something isn't working, go and ask for some support, and then try something new. The biggest advice that I could give somebody starting out now in classroom management or in any aspect of it would be to ask if you are unsure, ask if you don't know, ask if you don't think something's working. The only thing that we learn is by asking questions and by trial and error. You know, we make mistakes early on in our career. You will never stop making mistakes as a teacher. It's a constant learning curve. So don't ever be afraid to make a mistake and then go and ask for support, or don't ever be afraid to just go and ask for help anyway, because that's the only way that we can improve.
And is asking in your school or in the schools you've been in, has that been considered a positive thing? Because, you know, in some schools, when you ask, it's kind of seen as, oh, no, that shows you can't do it. But it seems that you seem to welcome it and want them to come and ask you more.
We spend our days, don't we, saying to the children, do you know what you need to do? Who's unsure? Who understands the learning objective? Is there anybody that doesn't know? And then they put their hand up if they don't know, and then you go and give them some more support. So why shouldn't it be like that for teachers? And you know, you just said in some schools it's seen as a negative, and I agree it is, because when I, you know, work with ECTs on forums and in some of my programs and stuff, they all say, well, no, we can't ask because, you know, what if people think we're silly and we've already been told that we ask loads of questions? But how do you learn?
I
You know,
know.
you can't just keep it in your head forever. So at our school, it's certainly not seen as a negative, it's seen as a positive.
That's great. So finally, I've learned loads from you. So thank you very much for sharing all your knowledge. But can you tell me about your coaching service for teachers and where we can find information about it online?
Yeah, so I run a coaching service for established teachers and for ECTs. And I have got pages on Instagram for established teachers. It is at Ruth underscore teacher wellbeing underscore coach. And for ECTs, it is at the.ect.coach. And I run bespoke one-to-one packages or group programs looking at for teachers, for established teachers, sorry, how to manage their workload, you know, and how to make sure that their well-being is a priority, and how to make sure that their working routine supports their own life. And we focus heavily on work-life balance, because, you know, teaching is such a demanding job that you could work all night if you let it, but that should not be the norm. You know, we shouldn't be working all night, we shouldn't be working at weekends. So my coaching programs for established teachers focus on looking at your well-being, looking at your working routine, and seeing how you can protect your own time and have more of a life outside of the classroom. My coaching programs for ECTs look at building confidence, building up their working routine, setting boundaries, setting their expectations, so that they can have a fruitful career while still living their own life as well. But I take a very much different slant on it with ECTs than I do with more established teachers.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Well, what I'll do is I'll leave all your details down below, so whoever's interested will be in touch. And thank you again for chatting to me. It's been brilliant. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And if you like today's video, please make sure to like it and subscribe to see who else I'm chatting to, and check out all the details down below.